Hello, and thanks for joining me. Today we're looking at a video by Pastor Steve Garcia from Star Rising Ministries Church. The video is called Something Always Had to Be There for Atheists Only. The bit about for atheists only caught my attention, so I asked a friend of mine who's a Christian to watch the video. A few seconds in, her laptop exploded, her kitchen caught fire, a tree crashed through her front window, the IRS audited her, and a blank-faced little boy started wandering through her house muttering, "Red rum, red rum." So yeah, it really is for atheists only. I'm obviously joking. I think the title there is just to make atheists feel special. Make us feel like we're worth his time so that we'll actually watch his video. But that's not what made me watch the video. What made me watch the video was the location where he chose to shoot his video.
Hi, this is Pastor Steve Garcia. I'm making an informal video in front of Ralph's. I wish I could make this video under better circumstances. But when God lays something on your heart and he says to put it on camera, I suppose it's urgent.
So, you call yourself a pastor, and your channel's name is that of a church. This implies that you have, a church. I'm pretty sure that if God were responsible for laying something on your heart, he would either have had the patience for you to make the drive from Ralph's to your church and make the video there, or waited until you were actually at the church and had a free moment before laying this thing on your heart. Doesn't that just make sense? You would have avoided the low-effort, low-engagement vibe that comes from people making videos behind the wheel of their car. It doesn't look like you're actually driving in this video, which would have been worse. It would have meant you were making the video with only part of your attention. But nonetheless, when you're behind the wheel of your car, people just don't get the impression that you're in a place where you can do good philosophy. I'll revisit the issue of your locale at the end of the video. For now, let's talk philosophy.
So I just wanted to continue our discussion about whether there's a God or not.
Your use of the phrase "our discussion" is misleading. It implies that you are exchanging ideas with someone rather than just outputting them. And that's not the case. And the reason I know that's not the case is you've disabled comments on your video. You do not, in fact, welcome our ideas.
And basically there's three choices. I came from my parents came from their parents, all the way back to the first man. And the first man came from matter and energy, and what did the matter and energy come from?
I applaud you for not begging the question by saying who instead of what. But a better way of phrasing the question would have been, what, if anything, did the matter and energy come from?
Some people say it came from gases. Well, where did the gases come from? And some people say the gases were just there.
I'm sorry if I'm the first person to tell you this, but gases are a form of matter. In fact, they're one of the three classical states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas.
And so people who don't believe in God often think the most logical line of reasoning is that all the matter and energy that we see today came from matter and energy that was always there a long time ago. Something always had to be there.
Now that's actually a good way of putting what I do in fact believe, as long as we're careful about terms. The term something means simply something which can be said to exist, or literally the opposite of nothing. The term always means for every actual moment in time. If we say that something has always existed, we mean that for every actual time t in the past, that something existed at time t.
And so some people call it a gases, some people call it a consciousness, some people call it, just matter and energy that had to be there that exploded into what it is today.
I'm sorry, but your insistence on drawing a distinction between gas and matter is somewhat distracting. Again, gas is matter. And if you're calling the Big Bang an explosion, that's misleading. When we think of an explosion, we think of, for instance, a gas tank exploding. The Big Bang was more like an inflation. In fact, that's what we call the period immediately after the Big Bang, the inflationary period.
But number one, if something always had to be there and it wasn't God, it had to be something else. Some people say they don't know, but it had to be something. Then all of a sudden you're introduced to the eternal.
Now again, we have to be careful about terms here. Eternal means of infinite duration. Something which has existed eternally is something for which there is an infinite amount of time in the past during which the thing has existed.
Something, some gas or energy, if it always had to be there, it's eternal. It did not have a beginning or an end.
Actually, it is possible for an eternity to have a beginning or an end, just not both. If something starts now and never ends, it's eternal. If something never begins but ends now, it's eternal.
So people can believe in God, people cannot believe in God, and they still believe that something always had to be there.
Philosophically speaking, if God exists, then God is something. Just as we discussed the term earlier. And do you see what I'm doing with the term discussed? You gave me ideas, I'm giving you ideas back. Something is the opposite of nothing.
But number two, for people who do believe in God, it's very similar. Christian thought says that it was God who was always there, that he is the energy, the person, the consciousness, the eternal creator, the being, B-E-I-N-G.
First of all, your average atheist on YouTube will know how to spell the word being. There are times when, being hard of hearing, I thought I heard the word bean, B-E-A-N, instead of being. But when someone talks about humans or deities, there's no danger of me thinking that you're serving human-flavored beans or beans made from the Holy Spirit. Second, your average atheist on YouTube will also know, at least roughly, what the idea of God is. Although in recent generations we have seen many atheists who were never religious, many if not most atheists in the United States are still former Christians. We know what Christianity is all about. We know what the concept of God is all about.
The one who has no beginning or end. The one who is outside of time. The eternal God.
You just contradicted yourself. Eternal means of infinite duration. Outside time means no duration or zero duration. One of the major differences between theists and atheists is that theists see no problem with causation or agency without duration. But atheists, for whom every instance of causation and agency we have ever observed does involve duration, have no reason to grant that durationless causation and agency are possible. This is actually the exact same kind of reasoning that Christians use when they appeal to the fact that we don't see things popping into existence out of thin air to support the idea that something can't come from nothing. That particular argument disregards the possibility that the material universe could always have existed, whether that always is of finite or infinite duration. But there's no possibility of time having been caused if causation necessarily involves time, which I think it does. There's no possibility of a God being outside time because causation and agency must both take place inside time.
So it's not too much different than Christians or theists believing that everything came from an eternal God.
No, not believing that the universe came from anything is vastly different from believing that the universe came from something, much less came from an eternal something, much less came from an eternal God.
It's not much different from the person who doesn't believe in God, who believes that all matter and energy came from some type of matter and energy that was always there.
Wrong again. It's vastly different. First of all, if whatever it is you're calling the material universe came from something which is itself material, then that would be part of what we call the material universe. For example, let's go with some of the more interesting theories in physics which state that phenomena we observe in our own universe, such as black holes, might give birth to other universes. If that's the case, then it's possible that our own universe, which we observe to have happened since the Big Bang, might have come from another universe like ours. But then this universe, the prior universe, any universes prior to that, and any universes which might ultimately come from those universes are all the universe. A single, unified domain of materialistic causes and effects. Call it the global materialistic causal domain. Now we can ask, where did it come from? Is there an infinite regress of material causes going back through eternity? Was there a first universe? If so, was it like ours or was it very different, perhaps representative of a more fundamental state of matter and energy? This is kind of a wild tangent, I know, but hopefully it will help you visualize the second point I'm about to make. If the global materialistic causal domain always existed since eternity, then it did not come from a god, it did not come from some kind of spirit, it did not come from nothing, it did not come, period. Because there was no time at which it did not exist, and therefore no time which could have been causally prior to it. Now, in your head, you're going back to the idea of a creator God existing outside of time. But again, anything which exists outside of time has zero duration, meaning it has zero amount of time in which to do something. And zero time isn't enough time to do anything, let alone bring about a universe. And third, if the past is not eternal, that is, if the total duration of the time leading up to this moment is finite, then exactly the same objection applies. There was no time at which the universe did not exist. There was no time at which something causally prior to the universe did exist. You'd have to find an unoccupied moment of time at which a causally prior entity could exist. Unoccupied meaning it's not already taken up by the thing which it's supposed to be causally prior to. But whether the past is finite or infinite, eternal or non-eternal, every such past moment is occupied if the global materialistic causal domain has always existed, using the definition of always I gave earlier.
See, we both believe in the eternal, so that's something we have in common.
I don't know whether the past is eternal or not, and for the sake of this discussion, it doesn't matter, for reasons I've already given.
Last thing I want to say is all matter and energy did not come from nothing. That's not an option to the scientific mind. We know, because of science and logic and reason, that all matter and energy cannot come from nothing.
It's extremely rare for any atheist to insist that something came from nothing. And the only reason I say it's extremely rare rather than it never happens is that, of course, the moment I make such a categorical denial, you'll find some atheist somewhere who does in fact believe that something came from nothing. There are hundreds of millions of us, each as ideologically different as a snowflake. But it's not true of me or of any atheist I've ever read, listened to, or talked to.
The best definition I heard of nothing is what rocks dream about. Nothing is what rocks dream about. What do rocks dream about? Nothing.
No, it's not the case that rocks do dream about nothing. Rather, rocks don't dream. Period.
So, out of that nothing came all physical energy and matter. That's so unscientific and so against all logic. So let's just throw that out.
I agree, let's throw it out, but not because it's unscientific or against all logic. If you were adhering to what is scientific, you wouldn't be a Christian, because the resurrection of a dead person violates the standard model of physics. In order for something coming from nothing to be unscientific, we would have to be able to devise testable theories about what, if anything, comes from nothing, and there is no way to test any such theory because we don't have a philosophical nothing to observe to see if anything comes out of it. It's also not the case that it's against all logic, because there are logically consistent models of causation under which it is entirely possible for something to come from nothing. These models basically state that things fail to be caused if and only if something prevents it from being caused. If there's a philosophical nothing, then there isn't something to prevent something from coming into existence because there isn't something. Until there is. So it's not against all logic. So then why do I agree that we should throw it out? Well, because to my knowledge, nobody is insisting that there ever was a nothing that something would have to have come out of. That's an apologetic stereotype.
So I just wanted to introduce that thought that we both believe in the eternal, that something was always there.
It doesn't appear that you can wrap your mind around the possibility that the past might be finite in duration. But again, it doesn't matter for the sake of this discussion.
And so after I establish that, I want to, kind of continue this conversation.
Conversation with whom? Like discussion, the word conversation implies that you're talking with someone, and in such a way that you are both giving ideas and receiving ideas. Because you've disabled comments, and I don't think there's anyone in that car with you.
Why do I personally believe that the thing or person or energy that was always there was God, Almighty God, an eternal God who has no beginning or end? Why do I gravitate in my logic to thinking that it's God? I'll tell you, because I think he has revealed himself. But we could talk about that in another video.
So, you believe that God lays things upon your heart, to use your words, And you believe that these things include propositional content, that is, information. In this case, the information that everyone believes that something always existed, which A, contains a lot of ambiguity, and B, doesn't move the atheist even 1 inch closer to theism. This strikes me as a strange bit of information to impart to you as you're coming out of Ralph's, with the intention that you should share it with atheists then and there while you're behind the wheel of your car without going to church or home. Let me give you an alternative hypothesis. What you've said in your video is not information that God laid upon your heart. It's information which came to your mind through the normal process of humans thinking human thoughts. And you honestly but mistakenly thought it was profound enough that, believing as you do that God reveals things to you, it must have come from God. I'd ask you to consider this. If God had a message for you that was important enough to lay on your heart and could not wait for you to drive home from Ralph's, it would be the real reason why atheists should believe that God exists. And not just, hey, isn't it interesting that we have this in common? Maybe you'll be slightly more inclined to learn about Christianity. It would be the ultimate proof. It would be the one thing that will convince every single atheist in the world who is able and willing to be convinced. That would be urgent. That would not wait for you to drive home, because what if you have a car accident or something? I suggest to you that what you've imparted in this video is nothing more than your own thoughts. And I further suggest that every time a human has ever believed that God has revealed something to them, that too is nothing more than their own thoughts, combined with a natural and man-made environment around them. The questions you've raised, or at least alluded to in this video, are serious questions. Questions worthy of respect, and they deserve answers more evolved than those handed down from Bronze Age mythology. So let's do what your man Paul says and put away childish things. Then maybe we can have the discussion you claim to want. If you enjoyed this video and want to help my channel grow, please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons. Be sure to hit the bell to be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to share any thoughts that God laid on your heart while you were behind the wheel in the parking lot at Ralph's, leave a comment below. Thanks as always for watching. We'll see you in the next video. I'm David John Wellman, and the rest is up to you.